to the drivers out here. All right, so here's Egypt Air, right next to an Air Canada Boeing 787-9, so 300 people again on the right, and straight ahead of us, Egypt Air, 380 people. What's an interesting fact I'll give you later on, just look at the size of the engine on this Boeing 777. Listen, Air Canada carries 450 people on this aircraft. So the old 4-engine aircraft, the Boeing 747s, even the newer Airbus A380 have 4 engines. Those aircraft are not efficient anymore because this aircraft can carry almost the same number of people with only 2 giant engines. Then we've got another Boeing 777 here, but this is the short version. So Egypt Air's got the long 300 series. Air Canada has both. The 300 in Air Canada's is 450 seats. This one is about 280 seats in Air Canada's configuration as well. So this is going to go non-stop to Addis Ababa. The ground crew are all ready. Everything's closed on the aircraft. They're probably just waiting for some final passenger boarding because you can see none of the doors are open now. The crew are waiting. They've got the wands in their hand. They're going to do a pushback shortly. Egypt Air leaves in a little while, but they're both carrying the same types of traffic through to the Middle East, to Ethiopia, connecting to the Middle East and Asia, Africa. Egypt Air will do the same thing. When we get over into Terminal 3 in a few minutes, you're going to see Saudi Airlines. That does the same thing again, trying to carry out this connecting traffic, just as Air Canada will do. In this case, they're partners with Air Canada in the Star Alliance. But essentially, they're okay. See what you can feel comfortable with, yeah.
Across 3 taxiways, 1 runway into the apron, and we were all trying to play catch. They were, not me. I went home at 2:15, luckily. But one guy decided, oh, I'm going to be hero. And things coming at him, one of these ULD cans coming at him at 30 miles an hour, you see him bail pretty quick. But
anyway, from Amsterdam, KLM has 2, Air Canada has 1, Air Transat, and another airline called Jet Airways. So here's a Korean Air, Boeing 787. Again, take a look at the wingtip shapes. So the 747 versus this Dreamliner here. And look at the beautiful shape of the engines. So this is the future here. This and the Boeing 777. That's very, very big and powerful. This Air Transat is in the brand new colors. It's the Airbus A330. So it carries 345 people on it. But they just painted these up, so they're starting to change their colors. It's quite fresh looking. It's a nice looking color scheme. So as Marvin's driving us around, we're going to loop back around. If you look to your right, to another person who's also in that tower, called the tower controller. So the Nav Canada employees are ground, tower, and that other building I mentioned earlier with the dark room with the radar screens. So Nav Canada has 600 people here. So as we're going along the apron, you're going to see a bunch of different staff doing a lot of different variety of jobs. But what's really cool is this aircraft here, this Embraer, with the big winglets and that catering truck attached. Oh, and there's another one here. So take a look at the diameter of this Embraer. Think of it as 2 seats, it's just like this bus, 2 seats, an aisle, and 2 more seats. The diameter of that is exactly the same as the engine on that Egypt airplane. Okay, the Boeing 777 engine. And here's, so this is one of Air Canada's newest planes. This would have been delivered like a month and a half ago. The Boeing 737 MAX 8, brand new. Now on that Korean Air, arrived in Korea from the Boeing plant on June 23rd this year. Yeah, brand new aircraft. So in Canada, you don't reverse your engines, and that has carried through to most countries. It's very rare now because you've got enough systems in place. Like the ideal situation is parking just like this, next to each other. All the ground, tower, and apron positions are all divided in half because the airport is so big, and we've got so much radio traffic. So where we are now, we're on North Apron, North Ground, and the North Shanwick in Shannon, Ireland. But that's handled by a different company, okay? So that's how Nav Canada operates. So that plane that just went airborne, oh, we've switched runways. We're going the other way now. Did you notice that? We were coming in this way before, now we're going out that way. So we're now heading to the west. So that aircraft, the white one there, just took off on runway 23 for other fire departments. Just behind Ethiopian here on the other side of the aircraft, that is the new infield terminal that or the old infield terminal that we just reopened. So we now use that for 6 different airlines from Terminal 3. The idea is it prevents them having to tow the airplane off and off the gates because, again, the gates get full. We don't have you can barely see it. There's another one. So we have 2 ground radars, and they're basically redundancy for each other. Okay. The building behind us to our left, this is the satellite building for Terminal 3. So we spent about $450 million last year renovating it. Okay. So 2 of them go to sleep. So what we're doing is we're waiting, looks like, oh, it's an arrival. There you go. The ground crew marshaled the aircraft in. So the wing walkers are stopping Marvin from going, but he also knows to watch for the signs. There's all sorts of signs out there that the pilot operates like the beacons on the aircraft. You've got the ground crew in place, you've got the wing walkers, you've got when you get your license to operate out here on the airfield, you have to understand how this all works. So I have a DA, I can drive on these roads only. He has an upper version of it which allows him to drive out on the taxiways and the runways, but he has to radio over to the tower and the ground to speak to them. But he might have to take this bus. If an aircraft gets a flat tire out on a runway, we need to send buses out to get the people off. The airline's responsible for the passengers, but they don't all have fleets of buses. We wouldn't want that. So we run that sort of stuff. That's an irregular operation we would deal with. This is the baby WestJet. I love these ones, the 737-600s. Not very successful $1 million check that it requires. There's a complete sort of ripping apart the plane and putting it back together. They may say, no, that's it. We're not going to spend $5 million on this one. It's had its life. It's 30 years old. It's time to put it in the desert and chop it up for soda cans. Whereas, you know, an airline like United, they had about 8 of those left. It wasn't worth keeping them. Whereas British Airways has 25 of them. They're going to keep them for years now, until it gets to that $5 million check, and then they might cut that out a little bit. Any more questions? Have I addressed all the questions that were out there? So you start understanding how some of this works? Now when I talk about the operational impact of that aircraft getting damaged, the Emirates aircraft, not only is that 520 people trying to get their way to somewhere in the world at Christmas time, but you've also got the 34 crew that are down in a hotel downtown, but now have to go back to a hotel downtown, 6 of those trucks. So that could be $60,000, okay? And then there's a major cost that every airline has to deal with. You put it in your car, you spend $60 filling up the tank. Emirates will fill up their tanks. It'll cost $100,000 to send it to Dubai. Okay? All of a sudden it adds up. Now if it goes out to de-ice and somebody has a medical situation and they have to come back to the gate, and they're an hour on the gate refilling the fuel and all that, and they go back and de-ice again, that's another $60,000 just down the tubes. Right? So it's a lot of costs involved, and that's part of the goal when talking to you about this, is so you appreciate the magnitude of all of this stuff. So next time you're flying, the airlines are all working on that too, and a good airline will keep you informed if something's wrong. Sometimes they don't know the answers themselves. They say, we've got a problem, we're trying to solve it. At the beginning of the tour, I told you we never lose your baggage. At this airport, the GTAA does not lose your baggage. But we have 17 kilometers of conveyor belts in Terminal 1. Terminal 3 we have 8 kilometers. We're responsible for it. But when your bag gets checked in to go on this airplane,